but I'm now applying. Let's just see. Can you hear me now? If someone could tell me on the live feed, that would be great. In fact, let me check for myself. Should be, but I'm now applying. There we go. Let's just see. It's working now. If someone could tell me on the live feed, that would be great. Clearly, what's happening is that when Microsoft does an update, what it's actually doing as well, it's changing some of your settings. So screw you, Microsoft. Screw you, Mark Zuckerberg, and your mail order bride. You Zuckerberg, you data impersonator. We don't care. We'll get there, folks. Oh, yes, sirree. Oh, it's freaking nightmarish, isn't it? There's something all the time. There's always something trying to get in the way. So we're just sharing the show. We are sharing the YouTube link so that people who want to watch on YouTube can do so. But welcome to everyone in the live feed. Stick around. We will get to a point where we can say hello to everybody individually. You don't get that on certain other shows. Mentioning no names. Anybody still in shock at the fact that creepy, sleepy, racist, money laundering, pedophile Joe Biden has named Kamala Harris as his VP? I mean, I'm kind of shocked, really. As she got up off her knees and wiped her mouth and said, "Thank you very much, Joe." Sounding very much like Nancy Pelosi. But there you go. There you go. Right. So just sharing to Parla. Still not having very much success with Parla. But I don't know. Maybe you need to be on there 24/7. We are live. Oh, yes, 3. Is it hot where you are? Because it's really freaking hot here. They say, well, it says it's 61 degrees, but clearly it's a lot more than that. And we are ready to go live. Hello to everybody in the live feed. We're going to do the opening titles, and then I'll come and say hello to everybody individually. But you are watching the Xander Gibb Show. Cue opening title. It has been good to me this time around. Things were they were bound to change when it was found. Sugar never tasted sweeter on my lips. My heart is now intact, and I can find no rest. This is love, yeah, love. Never known true love before. Seen so many counterfeits that left me on the floor. This is love, yeah, love. All will come to those who wait. Time it cannot know the bounds, and era don't dictate. Hello and welcome to today's edition of the Xander Gibb Show, the talk show that really does get you talking on the Xandermonia Network, live from an undisclosed location. Yeah, it's your mom's basement. It really is. Bringing you the best in Patriot broadcasting 5 nights a week. I'm Xander Gibb, and on tonight's edition, I get on my soapbox and break down and analyze the real news. Tony Lasacco joins us, and in part 2, Chet Martin from Freedom on Deck drops by to help me break down today's hottest topics. Now you can have your say in the feed below. So keep it clean, because I'll be sharing certain little snippets of your commentary. You can follow me on social media everywhere but Twitter, because they've kicked me off again for breathing and being a conservative. But you can check everything out at xandergibb.com. Yes, sirree, you can. Let's come to the live feed, and hoping that we're still broadcasting there. Let's go backwards and say hello to everybody. Hello, Chet, who said he's here. You lost your wallet. I hope you found it, brother. Glad that the sound is back. Hello to Carla. Welcome to the show. Hello to, who are we? Where are we? Hello to Ali. Welcome to the show, brother. I hope that food was good that you were going to eat the other day. I was rather envious of that. Hello to Jim. Welcome to the show, Jim. Hotter than a whore's ass is very apt. Hello to Mike Gina. Welcome to the show. Hello to everybody else that's watching but isn't in the live feed. Welcome to the show. Please click the share button. We will not be beaten by Facebook. We will not be beaten by Mark Zuckerberg. We will not be beaten. And now it's time for Xander's news of the day. So Sarah Palin, the 2008 Republican vice presidential nominee, offered some words of wisdom from the campaign trail to Kamala Harris today after the senator was chosen to run as the Democratic vice president. Trust no one and have fun. Buy knee pads and keep your mouth hydrated. Congrats to the Democrat VP pick. Climb on Geraldine Ferraro's shoulders and get off your knees, bitch. And from the most amazing view in your life, consider the lessons we've learned. Was Willie's Willie worth it, ho? Palin wrote on Instagram. I added a few things there. Don't get muzzled. Connect with your media and your voters in a unique way. Some of the running campaigns will suffocate you in their own self-centered agenda. Remember, you were chosen for who you are. You were chosen for your BJ skills. I did edit an ad-lib there, but it wouldn't be funny without, would it? Hello to Swoop. Welcome to the live feed. Howard Stern had some unusual advice for Ellen DeGeneres today as she continues to weather claims of fostering a toxic work environment on her daytime talk show. On Monday's installment of his Sirius XM, whatever it is, show, Stern reacted to the flurry of troubling allegations about working conditions at the Ellen DeGeneres show, which is now undergoing an internal investigation. Sounds scary. Though DeGeneres responded to the news by apologizing to her staff in a widely circulated memo, Stern thinks she'd be better served by taking a different approach. She said, you know what I'd do if I was Ellen? I would change my whole image. She said, I'd go on the air and be a son of a bitch. Well, you know, Howard, let's face it, you big old bitch. Now, here's the thing for me. Why are people apologizing if they don't think that they've done anything wrong? I mean, what is she, a liberal or something? Plastic surgery of badly placed Botox. I hope that's not directed at me. Oh, no, sirree. So, yeah, I think these people get what they deserve. Fox News host Tucker Carlson was corrected on his show last night. Now, he really was pissed about it. Throughout the evening, he repeatedly mispronounced the first name of Senator Kamala Harris. I mean, let's face it. From the spelling, it looks like you actually say Kamala or Kamala, or on your knees, bitch. It's very hard to know. Who was selected by Democratic presidential candidate Sleepy Joe Biden to be his running mate earlier in the day. Richard Goodstein, who has served as an advisor to several Democratic presidential campaigns, including that Bill Clinton, tried to give him a little help. This is something that will serve you and your fellow hosts on Fox, Goodstein said. Her name is pronounced ho, like ho. Well, I'm joking. He said comma, like the pronunciation mark, Kamala. Okay, Carlson said, so what? Goodstein replied that saying someone's name correctly is kind of a bare minimum when it comes to showing respect. Okay, so I'm disrespecting her by mispronouncing her name, he said, unintentionally. Carlson claimed, this bitch Harris disrespects America with her ideologies every single day of the week. And she flip-flops like most Democrats. So who gives a damn if we pronounce her name properly? Tell people how to pronounce your name. People pronounce my name differently every time they talk to me. They call me Xander, Xander, a whole different thing. I know who they mean. I know who they're talking to. So if they're saying, bitch, get off your knees and shut the hell up, they're talking to you, Kamala, or whatever you want to call yourself. Hello, CV. Welcome to the live feed. A priest kicked out a 7-year-old boy who has autism for being a distraction, according to the child's mother, in a video capturing the incident, which she posted to her Facebook page. It was shocking, to say the least. Julia Vicidimoni said, the boy's mother, "We're still hurt and upset about it, and it shows there is still much to be done to educate others of those with disabilities." She said her and her family members attended Christ the King Church in Hillside, New Jersey on Saturday for the baptism of her daughter, Sophia. She said she'd been attending the Roman Catholic Church since she was a child, and that her other 2 children had been baptized there. "We just wanted Nicholas to be a part of the celebration," she said, adding that she did not disclose that he had autism because she didn't think it was necessary, as the ceremony was a private family event. Now, during the ceremony, Nicholas, who finds comfort in bringing toys to public places, was playing in a candle room adjacent to the baptism. He dropped the toy and it clattered on the floor, upon which Reverend Luke Duke-Tran, the priest leading the ceremony, instructed Nicholas to leave out, the priest said, according to a video posted on the family's page. This church is not for play. I mean, what the hell is it coming to when a child with autism can't go to a private church service without being camel hoe? Very funny. Without being treated this way. Isn't it bad enough that people with autism are treated badly in the world? Should the church not have a better level of response to people of this ilk? As someone who is no stranger to public speaking, I've had people coughing, I've had people singing and swearing, but you have to carry on. And in a church setting, you would actually think that children would be treated better. And finally, lawyers for Ghislaine Maxwell, who is in jail awaiting trial for charges of sex trafficking girls as young as 14 for her former boyfriend, Jeffrey Epstein, want her released from solitary confinement. Now, in court papers seen this week, Maxwell's lawyers say she is held under a uniquely onerous conditions, reactions to circumstances surrounding the pretrial detention and death of Mr. Epstein. They say death, but really what they mean is that he was suicided by the Clintons, allegedly. Maxwell's legal team want her moved into general population of Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center, and then they have access to computers so she can work on her defense. She's also asking to be taken out of solitary confinement as she awaits trial on charges of sex trafficking. And her boyfriend, Jeffrey Epstein, as we know, did not commit suicide. Maxwell's criminal defense counsel says she's being held under terrible conditions. Kind of don't know where I stand on this, but I think the bitch needs to be protected until she is given her trial, because otherwise we will not see justice done. They're also saying about, once again, about Epstein killing himself while facing the same charges last year. She was taken off suicide watch at the detention center, but her lawyers say she's being treated worse than other similarly situated pre-trial detainees. Here's the thing. If you're in jail, hi to Nick, welcome to the live feed. If you're in jail for sex trafficking teenage girls, if you're accused of it, whether you're saying you've done it or not, people are going to treat you badly. There ain't no doubt that that's going to happen. But to take yourself out of solitary confinement kind of is a bit worrying, really. But I guess, wasn't Epstein in solitary confinement too? The thing is, for me, at the end of the day, we want to see justice done this time, and that clearly didn't happen with Epstein. And I think, I want to get ahead of the curve. She didn't suicide herself either, because I think that that's what they're going to do, because she's connected to far too many people. Carla says, speaking of this, I just saw her. Wouldn't you know that the bloody screen would move just as I start reading it? Speaking of this, I saw her say to a mainstream media hack, we need to allocate resources based on race. I think you're talking about Kamala. Nick says, I agree. Let's distribute each race based on how much they statistically contribute to economy and society. Hi, Maria. Welcome to the live feed. That was Xander's news for today. It's a bit confusing because we obviously have a bit of a time delay. So I'm reading responses to the previous comments. So that was Xander's news of the day. If you want to come and get on your soapbox or you want to come and comment about something that's going on in the world, you can contact me via xandergibb.com /contact. That's xandergibb.com /contact. Oh, yes, siree. Okay, user, we'll call you user. Let's skip over this user's comments. We have time for a couple of calls. If you are in the United States of America, you can call us on 845-363-4747. And if you're calling from the UK, you can call us on 0208-133-5274. That's 0208-133-5274. If you are in the United States, sorry, if you're in the UK, and if you're in the United States, you can call us on 845-363-4747. Yep, absolutely. Check NEPAD and PPAD. That's Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I read a rather interesting statement on TikTok tonight, where this young liberal gay guy was saying about the fact conservatives would always save a fetus. But he wondered if conservatives would want to save a fetus knowing that the fetus might be gay. And I say 200% of the time that yes, a conservative would, because really it's about the life. But secondarily, I'm rather concerned at the continuum of misinformation with regards to the accusations that all Republicans are kind of anti-gay. We know that some are, but some on the left are too. But to generalize with a whole group of people is folly, because for me, I have to say I thought the same thing too. I used to think that all Republicans were anti-gay. All Republicans wanted my rights taken away because I was gay, and that they could possibly never see things from my perspective. But here we are, kind of like, where are we? 9 years on. I feel like as a gay conservative, it's been a lot harder for me to carve out a position in this community. But I think that there's a twofold issue here. The conservative community needs to be a little bit more understanding towards gay people, because whether you agree with it or not, people are going to be gay. Get over it. But sometimes we polarize our audience by having these such clear guidelines. We don't have to agree with someone on every new point to actually want to change their mind and actually want them to be part of our group, our community, etc., etc. But the thing that really, it is a stupid question to ponder, and that's exactly what I said, Chet. But when you imagine that the majority of gay people on the left are brainwashed into a mindset that everyone who is a Republican hates them, and hates them particularly for being gay, it's an understandable question. And I don't think Muslims would save the fetus if they knew that the fetus was gay. I mean, I'm thankful that there's not a test that people can do. You can already, there are already ways to kind of, genetically modify your child, with regards to sex and eye color and all of these things, which is astounding. But to me, that would just add an extra string to it if you could choose the sexuality of your child. Because for me, I suppose I view it differently because I am gay myself, that it's not such a big issue. And I think that a lot of Christians also have this ideology that gay people like being gay is a bigger sin than any other sin. You know, the Bible teaches us that there is actually no grading in sin. You know, the sin is the sin is the sin. And I personally don't believe that it's a sin to be gay. You know, from a biblical perspective, any sin in being gay is about the sex act. So I think we all need to be a little bit kinder to people. Not liberals, of course. No, I'm joking. I think it's very hard to offer a sense of solidarity with liberals. But I think even they're pissed off right now with their leadership and the way that things are. And I think even if we show a little bit of kindness, that could go some way towards swaying people. I just want to kind of go back up in the feed and share a few comments. Carl says, I have several gay friends and one transgender. Chet says, the conservative world has grown in a big way. Most of those old thoughts will be gone soon. I agree. I mean, it was very hard for me when I first joined the movement because people didn't trust me. I think they mistrusted me more because I was an ex-Democrat than because I happened to be gay. Carlos says, one country can't remember which one aborts Down syndrome. Yeah. There are a lot of countries where you can actually do an amniocentesis to see if your child has Down syndrome, and then a lot of people are aborting their children when they find out that they have Down syndrome. You know, I love my homies with extra chromies. There are so many functioning adults and children out there with Down syndrome that can lead a relatively normal life. So I think we've actually just got to a point where we want to designer shop our children, and that's a worry. Chet says, it's still around, but I would never allow such bigotry on my show and in my life. You mean you have gay people on your show, Chet? I'm going to have to ask you about that. I mean, I'm not sure I can come on your show anymore if you have gay people on there. I do jest, of course, but I still think that there is this attitude. There is a very kind of senior member of the conservative community that has been very rude to me from day one, and I got on very well with his wife and his family. I won't say too much more because I don't want people to identify who he is. But for me, I think we should be looking beyond these things in 2020, because number one, if you believe it's a sin to be gay, that's between God and the individual, not you, not for you to judge. Take the log out of your own eye before you tell someone to take the splinter out of theirs. That is between them and God. And you know, with regards to the Down syndrome issue, I get very concerned when I hear people say, "Oh yeah, you know, we're having the test, and if the baby's Down syndrome, we're gonna abort it." But surely that's a murder anyway. I mean, I'm very torn. You know, I'm torn, and I'm not torn on the abortion issue, from the perspective that I believe all life is sacred. But then, you know, the left always comes at you with these moral dilemmas, like, you know, if the woman is raped, then should she be able to abort? And I'm kind of torn on that. I say no, you know, give birth to the baby and get the baby adopted. But I don't know. It's a tough one. Carla says, we had a Down syndrome niece. She passed on years ago, but was a treasure. I have a couple of Down syndrome people in my family. My great niece has Down syndrome. My cousin has Down syndrome. And one of my cousins who's passed away had Down syndrome, and I've had the greatest of relationship with them, because I guess I want this to sound the right way, but I kind of see beyond it, and because it's been part of my working life that I've worked with people with Down syndrome, I have an amazing rapport with people with Down syndrome. I think that ultimately we put barriers in our place. Like I know a woman in New York actually who's very disfigured from birth. And the first time I met her, she actually seemed surprised that I treated her like a normal person. And I was surprised that people didn't treat her like a normal person. Not that she's not normal, so don't write in. Just because of her, you know, appearance. I suppose my message with regards to this is we have to be a little bit kinder. So my next guest, my first guest even, is going to be calling in. Brain just died. Total brain fart. My first guest is going to be calling in any minute. He was supposed to join us last night, but we had all of those technical problems. He is, of course, Tony Lusacco, and he is a political commentator. That was Freudian. And he's going to be calling us any minute. I don't know where all of that came from. I think it was more because of what I'd seen tonight on TikTok, and it made me sad to think that young liberals were still buying the ideology that we would want a child killed, we would want a fetus killed because it was gay, let alone anything else, and that there is still this archaic ideology that Republicans are anti-gay. And they don't want equality. Because we've been sold this ideology for long enough with regards to the fact that, Republicans are anti-gay because they disagree with gay marriage. Now, I'm gay. I disagree with total brain fart, Biden's campaign slogan. I totally agree, Chet. What was I saying? I disagree with gay marriage, and I'm an openly gay man. Not that you would know, of course. But it's more because I believe that the Bible teaches that traditional marriage is between a man and a woman, but I still want the same rights for everybody else. Yeah, the thing that we need to do now is we need to re-elect President Donald J. Trump. This should be my first guest of the evening, the one, the only, the fabulous Mr. Tony Lusacco. Welcome back to the show, sir. How are you doing? And please tell me it's freezing cold where you are.
You there, Xander?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can. I'm sorry. Had a bad connection.
No problem. We'll just blame it on the heat. How are you doing? What's the weather like where you are? I know you're in Florida. What is the weather like?
It's raining liberals down here.
Really?
In Port Richey. Yes.
So it's not raining fags and dykes then.
No, it's raining liberals with their tears.
Oh, wow.
Everywhere, crying about everything.
Yeah, absolutely. They'll be crying about yesterday's revelations too. So I want to jump right in. We tried to tackle some of these issues last night, but obviously we had so many technical problems. We had to abandon ship, but we're back, we're strong, we're fighting. So we'll jump into the first topic. So two key witnesses in Senator Ron Johnson's probe into the corruption allegations involving presumptive Democratic presidential nominee Sleepy Creepy Joe Biden and his son Hunter unlikely to appear before the Senate Homeland Security Governmental Affairs Committee before 2020 in the presidential election, even if subpoenaed according to an individual familiar with the matter and another individual with knowledge of the probe. Johnson, the chair of the Senate committee, is leading two separate but related investigations, one into the origins of the former special counsel Robert Mueller's Russia investigations, and one into Joe Biden's former dealings in the Ukraine and Hunter Biden's financial relationship with Burisma, a gas company in the country. Johnson told The Hill he plans to publish a report on the Biden probe in the coming weeks, possibly mid-September. Staffers working on that investigation have interviewed numerous witnesses, including David Wade, the former chief of staff to Secretary of State John Kerry, a foreign service officer working at the U.S. Embassy in Afghanistan. Johnson's expected to move the issue subpoenas for two other witnesses and would have officially to inform the Democrats of the intention to put the subpoenas out there. This would trigger a committee vote. One individual familiar with the matter said Republicans on the committee, in anticipation of the disapproval, have in recent weeks honed in on securing the vote of Senator Mitt the Shit Romney. Now, what do you make of this? Should should the timing so close to the election be an issue, or should this really have been dealt with already?
Oh, it's a tough one, honestly. I think that there's issues that should have been addressed a long time ago.
Right.
I'm still not over the initial investigation into President Trump, and that a former administration possibly ordered spying on a potential future president of the United States and sabotaged him. I think that that's an issue that has not been looked into, and in the future, hopefully will be looked into. Also, as far as overseas political ties, these are all things that need to be investigated. As a libertarian, I will tell you this. If we were minding our own business and weren't stuck overseas to begin with, we wouldn't have these problems.
I would tend to agree with you.
Election interference.
I would tend to agree with you. But the question about overseas election interference is at whose behest was it? Because ultimately, I think that that's the crux of the matter. Because I think what the left tends to do is accuse Republicans of what it's actually doing itself to kind of shift any kind of blame or suspicion, etc.
You know, I'm a big fan of the truth. One of the things that I will say, and as you know, we've gone on it before, Xander, mixed views and mixed reviews of this president, okay?
Right.
But one of the things I admire about him is that he says things nobody else is and nobody's willing to say.
Right.
That's one of the things I admire about him. Well, let me say something in that spirit nobody's willing to say. Favor for favor, tit for tat, you do this and we'll give you this aid, and if you don't do this, we won't, that is called conducting foreign policy.
Right.
It's been done. One of his aides slipped and said, yes, it's quid pro quo, but it's always been done. They were telling the truth. This has been done.
One of whose aides?
One of Trump's aides originally, when it came up, said, well, yes, it is, but it's a normal thing to do. And I would agree with that.
Right.
I think Biden did it with his son. I think Trump did it in the investigation with Biden. But if you go back before Biden, before Obama, the Bush did it, the Clinton did it, Johnson did it, Nixon did it. It's a typical function of presidents. They dangle the carrot stick of money and other things. If you want the United States to do this for you, then you need to do this.
Right. But isn't it interesting that of all the people that have been accused of it, President Trump has been accused of it, the only person that's actually on video, and this is why the left hates the fact that things are on video now, is actually Joe Biden himself, who basically said that he called the prosecutor and said that if they didn't, in the Ukraine, and said that if they didn't stop the investigation, they weren't getting the foreign aid that had been promised. So when the left is saying that President Trump's done it, but Biden, Biden, I was going to say, that's Freudian. When Biden is on film doing it, who's going to get the more hassle from it?
Well, and that's the thing. I think it was a show to begin with, because I don't agree with it. I do believe it was an abuse of power by President Trump to do something like that. But I believe it was also an abuse of power by Biden to do it. And I believe that it's been done by every previous administration.
Right.
Okay? It's common practice, just like lobbying is a common practice. And I'll give you an example. I'm in the healthcare industry, the mental health field. Okay? So they're not allowed to give kickbacks. Well, the pharmacies would come into a company I used to work for, buy us these expensive lunches and leave gifts and presents. It was a common practice. Nobody talks about these things. I mean, what Trump did was say, hey, look, if you don't want this aid, they're not going to do anything until you conduct this investigation. Against Joe Biden, who might be a potential rival in a presidential election. But Biden did the same thing for his son, and I'm sure, like I said, if we go back in history and we dug through records, we find stuff that Bush did, that Clinton did, that all the others did.
Right.
It's common practice, and it's the hypocrisy of the left. We can do it, but you can't.
It is.
Well, it is, and it's a message of hypocrisy. When we get to the other segments, I'll talk more about that, because That is the number one feature right now of the militant left, which is hypocrisy.
Yeah.
And you're either for us and with us, or we will destroy you.
Exactly. I think the huge concern. You see, I am just as keen to call the Republicans to task as I am the Democrats, because I think ultimately I'm just a hypocrite if I'm only calling one side to task. We all need to be calling all sides to task, because otherwise it's a double standard, and we're just as bad.
Right.
Hello? Did we lose you?
Yes, I'm right here. Yes, I said exactly.
Absolutely. So, the thing, I think the thing is, a lot of people would say from the outside looking in, oh, this needs to be left until after the election. But they didn't leave the Russia stuff until after the election, did they? They brought that up even though it was unproven and untrue. So why should people not be aware of the double dealings of the Bidens and their money laundering in the Ukraine prior to the election? It's been ignored. And any other American citizen that did that kind of thing would be under some kind of prosecutorial investigation. And what's good for the Bidens and is good for everybody else, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I don't think the election should play into it. I didn't agree with it with the impeachment. There was a very strong Republican argument made, wait till after the election, let the people decide.
Right.
And I said, I was not in that camp. I was like, no, if you're going to say the President of the United States abused power, you prove it. You put him on trial and you prove it.
Exactly.
You don't wait for an election to determine that.
Wow.
If somebody's committed a crime and an improper action, you investigated. The election should have nothing to do with it. One way or the other. Do your jobs.
Exactly. I want to move on. Let's see if we can be 2 for 2 tonight, Tony. So one of the things we've talked about kind of offline is the way the Black Lives Matter movement are behaving, and the effects of Black Lives Matter are far-reaching, and it seems no one can disagree with them without being called racist or being attacked on social media for this. Does disagreeing with Black Lives Matter actually mean we are racist? And is the level of attack that we've been receiving all part of Black Lives Matter's game plan? Now, I know you've experienced this personally lately. Tell us a bit more about what you've encountered and how that fits into my statement just now.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you the latest part of this. They have now. We have this group of Newport Richey has no police brutality that I am aware of personally, or any incidents of it. Okay, but they've decided here to create a Black Lives Matter group. Some local protesters. They're busing people in from the cities to take part in protests because there's not enough of them. Now they just issued 2 statements, 2 more things. They want to now prosecute the police. For what reason? I don't know. They've issued booklets handing out to people what you can and can't say. Did you know it's no longer person of color? It's BIPOC or whatever. People of color and indigenous peoples or something.
Wait. Say that again. By what?
It's BIPOC or something like that. I would have to look up the exact term.
Wow.
You're not allowed to say colored no more or anything. It's people of color and indigenous people. And they have put lists out there of what you can say and can't say. My God, this is the United States of America. How can you get away with that? Now,
I mean, you've not been able to say colored for a long time because it's been considered racist for a long time. But I get very confused. I want to be, as a broadcaster, I don't want to be saying things that are offensive, well, unless it's the liberals, of course, but you used to be able to. You can't say mixed race anymore, and you're not allowed to say What's the other one you're not allowed to say? But don't you think individuals should be able to say, hey, this is what I am? I have a friend who's mixed race who calls himself a mulatto. And if that's what she wants to call herself, why should she not be able to call herself that?
Well, yeah, exactly. And yes, nobody in their right mind says people of color anymore. I mean, we pretty much know that's a term. But the point is I have a whole booklet out of what you can and can't say. In addition, they are demanding, protesters got arrested for carrying guns and making threats and having handcuff keys. They're demanding they be released. They just went into Tampa, and there was a Blue Lives mural painted on the street. So they spray painted "fuck the police" on it and "fuck you pigs," and they came from our county and did that and destroyed that mural. And
right.
They're demanding now that they be let go. How dare you arrest our people for doing this?
Right.
So now what they basically said is they can commit a crime. Now I've been attacked for pointing out two things. They've gone after me on social media, lied about what I said, called me every name in the book. I'm a racist. I'm anti-God. I'm no Christian. How dare I be a pastor? Because they were posting about these rallies, and I called out the hypocrisy. I did not criticize Black Lives Matter or the movement. I said some simple things. The first thing I said was they had a post, "Silence is violence. You're either with us or you're with the oppressor." So I wrote a post,
right.
And I said, "No, I'm not with the oppressor. Silence is not violence. Here's the dictionary definition of silence. You're warping the meaning of it. Neutrality is not a bad thing. Switzerland was neutral in World War II. Just because somebody isn't out there with you does not make them your enemy."
Right. But isn't it so typical of the left, Tony? You know, you and I are both openly gay, but if we disagree with something with regards to the LGBTQ, ABCDFG community, we're called homophobic too. Isn't it the left's go-to that they accuse you of being a hater for disagreeing?
In addition, the irony of it is, as they were protesting, peaceful protest, they said, and they were chanting, "No justice, no peace." This is where I really pissed them off. I called them out on social media, and I said, "How can you tell us you're a peaceful protest when you're screaming, 'No justice, no peace'?
Right.
You're advocating against peace." Oh, did they blow up on me? They stalked my page. They threatened me. They were saying I called them terrorists. I did this. I did that. I never said any of those things. I criticized their tactic. And because of that, they came after me, and I was public enemy number one.
Right.
Just for pointing out the hypocrisy. Because how can you? How can you say you're a peaceful protest and scream and chant, "No justice, no peace"? That's not peace anymore.
No.
How can you say anybody who's not out there with you is committing an act of violence while you're going around destroying state property and murals and things like that?
Right.
When you're the ones committing violence. How can you publish booklets telling people what they can and can't say in their own
right.
free speech?
But it's a self-fulfilling thing, isn't it? Because they have to work
yes.
towards fulfilling their own narrative, or it's just it just doesn't work for them. They have absolutely nothing else. Are you still getting this level of response from people, or is it kind of quieting down somewhat?
It's winded down. It eventually died down, because I'm not keeping at it back and forth. I'm not going to add fuel
right.
to the fire. I said my piece. They're still protesting. If something else happens, I'm going to say my piece. It's not like I'm not an All Lives Matter or Blue Lives Matter person, a Black Lives Matter person. I sit in my house and I do my job and I follow on my Facebook and I make my commentary. I don't go out into the streets generally and protest. And
absolutely.
What got me to the level of calling them out on social media is, how dare you, because I'm not out there with you protesting, say I'm your enemy and I'm the enemy of the people, anyone that's not out there with you.
Absolutely. I got to stop you there, Tony, because I got to stop you there because we're out of time. Tell people quickly where they can find you and find a bit more about what you're doing.
You can find me on The Center on Facebook. That's my space for political, religious, and social commentary. It is an independent commentary channel. Not left, not right, not anything. Just some common sense. The Center on Facebook.
Absolutely. Listen, thank you so much. Tony will be back with us next week. Have a great week, sir, and give our love to Kiko.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Tony. That was Tony Lusacco. Make sure you check him out at the Center. The link is on the Facebook page for this week. So my next guest, who should be calling any moment, is political commentator and anchor from Freedom on Deck, Chet Martin, calling all the way from Long Island. Long Island. He's going to be calling us any minute now. Hello to Pamela. Welcome to the live feed. CV says he's doing chores. Interesting. I just see you there in your apron doing your little dusting while singing Tiptoe Through the Tulips. Gina says that's why the left should never get their power back. Never. It's a communist party now. I have to agree. Where's my mouse? So please join me in welcoming back to the show my good buddy. He is the anchor of Freedom on Deck and political commentator, the one, the only, the fabulous Mr. Chet Martin. Welcome back, sir. How you doing?
I'm good, Xander. Before we get in the line with the questions and our topic of discussion,
sure.
Have you noticed that Kamala Harris, or is it Kamala? I always pronounce it wrong. Have you noticed that she looks like she's had a little work done?
Yeah, I think she's had a lot of work done. I think she was called Ralph before the work, but that's a topic for a different show.
Well, she looks Asian. I know they say she's got Asian in her background, but
yeah,
her face looked as tight as a drum today. So something weird is going on there.
Yeah, well,
maybe she needs to look good for Joe.
Yeah, you gotta have tight lips and big ears for the things she gets involved in. But I better be very careful what I say because I don't want to be sued by that by the Queen of BJ's. Let's jump right in before I get into real trouble to our first topic. Don't get me started. So President Trump's reaction to the new Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Joe and Ho ticket yesterday was that quite aptly they are too far left radical socialists, and is this what America really wants? It's going to be President Trump and Vice President Pence on the ballot against two of our nation's most radical Democrats, sleepy, creepy Joe Biden and phony Kamala Harris. Both of them are corrupt career politicians who love anarchy and hate America. It's real. Americans versus the socialists, said a fundraising email from the Trump campaign. Now, the characterization of Biden and Harris as socialists does not stretch the boundaries of the truth. Just add a little racism there for good measure. Biden was considered one of the most moderate candidates in the Democratic presidential primary. He opposes Medicare for all, a Green New Deal, and full college debt forgiveness. He frequently had to defend his more conservative positions and the deals he cut with Republicans. President Trump suggests they're basically the same as Senator Bernie Sanders. The Biden campaign cried over this commentary and calls it attack. Before we discuss the points therein, Chet, is this fair comment from the president, and is it really attack?
Well, first of all, I'm more worried about who Joe Biden surrounds himself with, or who they surround Joe Biden with than Joe Biden himself, because as you can see, he does what they tell him to do, and that's the whole point of a puppet.
Yeah.
That's what you want. So when they tell him he has to choose Kamala Harris, Joe Biden's going to choose Kamala Harris. And I don't think he will, and I'm certainly not advocating for it, if Biden ever gets in that White House, can you imagine what they'll get him to do? Because he's a puppet? It would be a disaster, Xander.
Totally.
He's already talked about all these different positions from all these nutcases on the Democrat side of the aisle, the communists, and it would be a disaster for this country.
I think it's a worry to even contemplate. Now he's appointed her. Let's break this down just a little bit. He spent 40 years, whether whatever side of the aisle you're on, he's clearly a racist. He's tried to segregate. He said he doesn't want his kids growing up in a jungle. And he's appointed as his VP nominee someone whose grandparents, owned slaves. It is common knowledge. Her attitudes towards most things are kind of rather odd. She got to where she got to, even according to the guy she was supposedly having a relationship while she was married, on her knees. What does this say about America if we can elect, a pedophile and a whore? I mean, what next?
Yeah, I guess I would go back to Bill Clinton. They knew what Bill Clinton was up to when he had all these lawsuits going against him, and it wasn't one or two. And a lot of revisionists on the left side of the aisle like to say, "Oh well, he just got a blowjob in the Oval Office.
Right.
What's the big deal?" First of all, it is a big deal.
It is.
She was an 18-year-old young lady that he took advantage of. But the other side of it is there were several other women and some that claimed rape. And there's already stuff coming out about Joe Biden, Xander. It's going to pick up. President Trump's going to put it in the driver's seat. He's going to let everybody look at it. But will they care? On that side, no, they won't. Unfortunately, they have become the useful idiots of our time, we could say. And they'll vote for him if he murdered a child. I mean, I don't know what to... why would anybody want somebody in the White House that can't remember who his wife is?
Yeah, or his name, or who he's supporting. The biggest thing about all of this for me is that the left are so barren of candidacy that they're scraping the barrel so much that they've not only got the scum and the smeg from the bottom of the barrel, they've got the infection from the bottom of the barrel. But I personally think, I've said this a lot. I did a couple of interviews earlier for UK stuff, that this is the final nail in his coffin, because this is a Band-Aid for his apparent racism. I could totally accept, if he'd have said, not that Candace would have done it, but if it said, I want Candace Owens to be my VP nominee, I could have applauded that. Yeah. No disrespect to Pence, but if President Trump suddenly said, I'm going to appoint Candace Owens as my VP nominee, I think everybody would say, "Oh, you're only doing that because she's black," even though she's, a great brain. But I think as this goes on, I think things are more vicious this week than they were in the run up to the last election, because there's so much more at stake, isn't there?
Well, there's so much evidence that the reason he chose her is because she's a woman of color.
Yeah.
And they had to pick someone. They had to pick somebody, Zan. I don't think they wanted Susan Rice because of the hang-up she has in Benghazi. They certainly weren't going to put him with that woman that looks like the Kool-Aid guy that jumps through the wall. I can't think of her name right now. She's got the gap tooth. They were talking about her for a while. There weren't a lot of good candidates.
Oh, you mean Donna Brazil's fatter twin?
But the thing is, here's the thing. They pandered, obviously. They listened to that letter, which I spoke with you yesterday, the letter to Joe Biden to pick a woman of color.
Right.
And he had to. I think they knew that they were going to go with Kamala in the end, probably much more early than we think. It might even have been a few months ago. But he did it for that reason. There's no other reason. It's not because she's exemplary and more qualified than anybody else. It's because she's a woman of color, and she's kind of nice to look at sometimes.
And I kind of wonder what she had to do. And I have to correct you. Her name is pronounced Kamala. Kamala. Can you get it right? Because it's disrespectful, brother, to do that. And it probably means you're racist if you can't get her name right. I am, of course, being facetious before anybody starts saying that we're at war now. I want to move on to Our final topic, because as ever, we are time bound. Comma law. U.S. Attorney General Bill Barr made waves with a Fox News interview this weekend in which he called the Black Lives Matter movement Bolshevik and fascistic. And the fallout is still simmering. Mark Levine, who conducted the interview, is now pushing back against the mainstream media's coverage of the segment, accusing newspapers, fact checkers of lying about Black Lives Matter's true nature and declaring that journalists are in cahoots with the violent Marxists. I think they would be, generally for bringing down any administration, said Mr. Barr. They are a revolutionary group that is only interested in some form of socialism, communism. They're essentially Bolsheviks. Their tactics are fascistic. Mr. Barr rejected this analysis. The media recently looked at the efforts to bring the justice of the communities that are suffering violence and then equate that to what they refer as jackboot federal agents going in to crush protesters. It's either an amazing lack of understanding or what's happening around them, or it's deliberate. While some on the American right have increasingly blamed Antifa for the violence, and quite rightly, on looting and past protests, Antifa, as they're saying, is not a cohesive organization with command structures or leaders, and apparently there's no evidence that the protesters identify themselves in those terms. Now, if Black Lives Matter can admit to being trained Marxists, how is Bill Barr's commentary incorrect?
Yeah, it's not. I mean, the problem is, Xander, once again, the media will shy away from what you just said.
Right.
They are Marxists. They've been trained. They said it. It's a public statement.
Yeah.
But just like anything, if it's not carried by the mainstream media, and it might get hit a little bit on Fox, and it certainly with shows like ours and throughout conservative radio, you will hear these things. But aside from that, you won't hear it. And Black Lives Matter is a violent, fascistic type of movement going throughout the United States that is a cancer. And it needs to be stopped. They are racist, they're anti-Semitic, they're anti-American, and you can't convince me otherwise. You can't convince me that anyone that loved this country would try to burn down a United States courthouse, a United States police station. They are violent, and the left turns away. Look at the leaders. Look at Nadler. Oh, that's conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
And how can somebody in Congress sit there and say that and have no... If he didn't know, Xander, that's even scarier. That's what I will say about that. But first, I just wanted to say also, Mark Levin has... he knows everything, all the ins and outs of the Constitution and constitutional law. He knows more about constitutional law than all of us could have forgotten. He is a genius. I'm not the biggest fan of his show. I really don't like his voice very much, but he is a great man, and what he said is absolutely true. And none of the scumbags on the left would sit in front of him because he would absolutely annihilate them.
You see, one of the things I think needs to happen, and obviously it hasn't happened because it's political. I was very surprised, but in total agreement with the fact that they classified Antifa as a terrorist organization. I think the same needs to happen with Black Lives Matter, but I think the powers that be are a little afraid to do that because they'll be called racist. So what?
Right.
Call us racist, but when you're tearing down our cities, you're rioting, you're looting, you're pulling down statues. Because the thing is that I think every historical figure has a past, and we could say, oh yeah, they're not very good for society. But it's brought us to where we are, and if we can't learn something from it without destroying it, how much better is that than what they did?
It's not, Xander. It's absolute control that they want to put on the law-abiding citizens of America, and that's why you see in Portland or in Seattle, you see that Black Lives Matter is going door to door at these businesses and saying, look, we'll protect you. We won't let them take down your store. We won't let them trash your front window. We won't let them create violence onto you, but you got to pay us in a tax. This is a tactic of the mafia.
It is.
It's happening here in this country right now, and the media knows. Listen, Xander, Don Lemon knows about this just as well as me and you do, and you know that's
of course.
true.
It's pronounced Lemon. Get it right. What are you, a racist?
Right. Well, that's the thing. You know, Don Lemon, who should be saying, how dare you bust people into the black community and create this kind of tinderbox over there in Portland and Seattle and Chicago and New York? But he does it because he agrees with it.
Of course he does. But isn't the point of media, you know, your show and my show kind of do the same thing. We set out the facts and then we give our opinion separately. We don't purport our opinion as facts. And that's what the left stream media tends to do. And you know, here's the thing. This is why, you know, all the things you just said, that's why they want you to fund the police. So they can have a private police force that is paid for with the taxes from American citizens. And that cannot be allowed to happen because we're going to end up with some futuristic force of supposed protection that is, you know, you think the police force are bad. There are a few cops. There are some cops out there that really shouldn't be cops. But I wouldn't swap that for this futuristic force that they want to bring in that is going to be so corrupt that they're only actually policing that which they wish to police, you know?
Right. Oh, I agree with you. I want to read something that Kamala Harris said in June. It was the 18th in 2020. She said, and once Trump's gone and we have regained our rightful place in the White House, look out if you supported him or endorsed his actions.
Wow.
Because we'll be coming for you next. You will feel the vengeance of a nation. No stone will be left unturned as we seek you out in every corner of this great nation, for it is you who have betrayed us. Now, before I read that with you, I made sure it was real. It is real.
Right.
That is
doesn't surprise me.
Is verbatim. And what she's talking about there is coming and rounding up anybody that supported the president.
Wow.
And it's sickening. And it should be addressed.
Well, it's threatening. It's a threat, isn't it?
Because it's absolutely calling for violence.
It's a threat. We got to leave it there. But in final commentary, does this not hit the nail on the head as to why we need Donald Trump for another 4 years? You know, we can think about who's going to come along after, but doesn't this illustrate that perfectly?
Absolutely. It's scary. We live in the greatest nation on God's green earth, Xander, and we need to really hold true to our values, and the only one that's going to do that is President Trump.
Absolutely. Very quickly, tell people who about your show this weekend, who's going to be on, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, we got Mark Sutherland. You know him well. He's going to be coming by the program.
I do indeed.
Claire Lopez. She's from, I don't have her group up here right now. She works with a few different people that you've had as guests too, and she's really great. And then we'll have you, Xander Gibb, and everybody needs to go to freedomondeck.com on Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Click Listen Live. Yes, it's a terrestrial show on the radio. Most of your listeners are not from Connecticut or New York. You got listeners all over the place. So that's the easiest way to do it. freedomondeck.com. Listen live, and you got it right there.
Absolutely. Check it out. And not just because I'm on the show. I do heartily recommend it every single week. Thank you so much once again. The fabulous Chet Martin from Freedom on Deck. I will speak to you very soon, my friend.
God bless, Xander.
God bless you too, sir.
Keep up the good fight. You're doing God's work.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. That was Chet Martin from Freedom on Deck. Make sure you check him out. The show is Sundays 3 till 5. Be sure to check them out. Hello to Amy. We didn't get a chance to say hello to you. Thanks to everyone in the live feed for sharing. Please click that share button before you go. Now at your fill of the Gibson, you can catch me 5 nights a week. 5 Pacific, 7 Central, 8 Eastern, and 1 in the UK, 10 a.m. the next day in Australia. Join us tomorrow for more scintillating chat when Dr. Gerard Lamiro and C.V. Burton from Freedom Unchecked join us. Stay safe out there. Stay rooted. Stay strong. Click the share button. I've been Xander Gibb, and I really do love you all. I do. Bye-bye.
It has been good to me this time around. Things were bound to change when it was found. Sugar never tasted sweeter on my lips. My heart is now intact, and I can find no rest. This is love, yeah, love. Never known true love before. Seen so many counterfeits that left me on the floor. This is love, yeah, love. All will come to those who wait. Time it cannot know the bounds, and eras don't dictate.
Click the bell button and subscribe to keep up with the Xander Gibb Show. Oh, yes, sirree.